You're listening to the Cantina Cast, your home for thought-provoking Star Wars talk. Join Albert and Jonesy in breaking down the latest news, trailers, movies, and of course, your favorite characters from a galaxy far, far away.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Cantina Cast. My name is Albert Padilla, and this is episode 603. For tonight, we are going to do a recap of Star Wars Celebration, which just ended less than 24 hours ago. So we've got some thoughts and opinions about how this one went from somebody from the outside looking in. And then we're going to get into just kind of a high-level recap of everything that was covered, some of the things that stood out to us. And as time permits, we might get into some of the more ancillary, lesser, announcement type stuff. But to help me do all that is, of course, Jonesy. Jonesy, welcome to the show tonight. How are you doing tonight?
I'm doing well, man. It was actually kind of cool being able to turn on YouTube and putting on the TV and having kind of background Star Wars stuff going on. So you're right. We were a bit of outsiders this time around, which was a little bit different for us, but it was still kind of cool to be able to still join in remotely, if you will. Yeah,
no, it was great. And happy for everybody that was in attendance. That final kind of, what is it? What do they call that? The closing ceremony video was pretty touching as always. But yeah, it looks like a really great time was had by everybody in attendance.
It really was. Hey, on a quick note, have you had a chance to check out Light and Magic season 2 yet?
I have not. I was strapped for time this weekend, so I was mostly doing scout stuff. And when I wasn't doing that, I was doing whatever I could to get caught up on the news that was coming out so that we could actually do this show tonight. So, but I've heard good things about it from everybody that's seen it. I've heard also some people have said that's even better than the first one, which I was like, wow, that says a lot because I really enjoyed the first one.
I think a lot of that is probably because it, like we had talked about, it focuses on the prequels as well as kind of what comes next for ILM and what kind of the changes of the times. And it was interesting. It was only 3 episodes though. I thought last time it was 6, I think, and this time it was only 3. So
that makes sense. Yeah,
a little bit shorter, but yeah, super enjoyable and highly recommend people go out there and check it out. Especially if you're just kind of curious what goes into making these things, as well as this one had a lot more kind of human elements to it. I think is maybe why people are a bit drawn to it. You have the Ahmed Best kind of storylines, as well as when you have ends of eras, that's very emotional and it's difficult, but then you kind of see what's next and, life kind of moves forward in that kind of way. So yeah, highly recommend for that. And maybe we'll come back and do, like we did last time, a bit of a Patreon episode where we come and revisit those.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Speaking of Patreon, Albert.
Yeah.
We have some pretty amazing Patreon members we want to say thank you to. So now part of the tribe members, Alex, Raphael, Danny, Mike, Lauren, Dante, Riss, Jackson, Sharkman, Dan, Daz, Uncle Leon, Josh, Jacob, Reed, Roaring, and I've got a Brad feeling. And our Delusions Grandeur members, our top tier. Now, this is Rod Racing, CJ, Steve, and Rob. If you're curious about Patreon, cantinacast.com/Patreon, so you won't miss that Light and Magic Season 2 breakdown of ours, as well as tonight, right after this show, we are going to break down the Celebration exclusive video that was for the Mandalorian and Grogu. So what they saw, you can join us and we'll break it down and go through that. Also, a really special thank you to our YouTube members. Zeralin signed up tonight, as well as Alex and Danny. So thank you so much. If you're curious about that, come out here to the live stream, ktcast.com/YouTube. Of course, it's free. But if you'd like to support the show for $1, you can get a little custom icon next to your name, as well as some emojis there, just as a thank you for supporting the show. Certainly appreciate that.
Yeah, no, thank you guys for doing that. It's very sweet, very humbling, always appreciative. Let's see, what else? As Jonesy mentioned, after this full breakdown, we will be showing the video. So we've done this historically in the past. It's, kind of behind a paywall, closed doors kind of thing. But
as you announce it publicly to everybody.
As I announce it publicly, which we did last time too, but it's fine. And so we'll do that. It's going to be a lot of fun to actually break that down. It was some of that footage that we saw was the same footage that we saw at D23, and some of the footage at D23 did not show up in this trailer. So we'll kind of talk about that and maybe kind of where all this is going. So that should be a lot of fun. And then we've got this little show that's about to premiere in just a couple days here called Andor Season 2. You might have heard of it. We're going to break down those first 3 episodes sometime next week. I think we're going to try to get it all done in a Wednesday. But look for that. That should be a lot of fun. Maybe. We'll see. I don't know how that's going to go for the next 4 weeks, breaking down 3 episodes, close to almost over an hour and a half worth of footage there. So it's basically a movie every single week for the next 4 weeks. So that'll be our full breakdowns, and then we'll continue to do Patreon shows on the weekend. We have a lot more Patreon content coming from Star Wars Celebration, including more of the breakdown, some of the exclusive stuff that was shown. We'll talk about that, break it down. So if you're not a member already, please join. If you can, there's tons of stuff out there for just about anyone, whatever you like in Star Wars. We've likely covered it in some capacity exclusively to Patreon members. Okay. With that, let's get into this. And I kind of want your overall impressions. I mean, I said it is kind of weird going and, not attending Celebration, knowing what having, we've been to a couple celebrations now, and they're always an amazing experience, right? You cannot be an outside viewer and go, oh, this wasn't that great, or I didn't really like this. I mean, you can certainly judge the announcements and how important they are, how impactful are, how big they are, right? But there's much more to Celebration. Everything from, just the experience of being there, the interaction with other Star Wars fans, people of the same ilk that love and maybe don't love the same stuff that you do, but everybody seems to be there in great spirits and for the love of Star Wars. And there's so many other facets like this, it's the cosplay section and all the other facets of Star Wars that go with it. On top of that, this just happened to be in one of the most exotic places in the world, and where, as Star Wars fans, knowing that Star Wars originated with Japanese origin samurai movies and some of the influences that George Lucas had there, this was a special place to really kind of go to just to be there, especially since we hadn't been there since 2008. So all that said, I'm just kind of framing this up for you. How did you feel like this celebration went, again, from the outside looking in?
You touch on a few really great points, because when you're there, I mean, it's an experience. I mean, it is so, you connect with it in a very different way when you're on site, you're doing the things in and around, and you're right. It is so overwhelmingly, positive. Like in a good way. I mean, positivity can be taken as a negative these days in some ways, but it is all the best things about the fandom coming into one place to celebrate something that everybody loves, and overwhelmingly positive. We're all there we usually all have spent some amount of money to get there in whatever capacity it is, no matter where you live in the world, whether it's near or far. And it's crowded. Everything's expensive, but you're just to be able to experience it and see everything that's going on, walk around, be around people that are all there, just to have a good time and have fun and not have to worry about, am I going to be looked at this way or that way, or can I speak openly about Star Wars? It's really cool to be able to do all that, and it's experience unlike anything else. I mean, there's other conventions that do it really well as well, but doing it for one franchise on this scale is kind of unheard of. But it's so cool, but it is hard to connect with it, I think, when you're remote like we are this time, right? It was cool to be able to watch the live stream. It was cool that they live streamed some of the panels. I wasn't really expecting that, especially some of, like, on the Visions panel, they actually showed some of the videos as well, which was kind of nice. Mm-hmm. So it was really nice to be able to kind of join in some capacity. And yeah, sure, it went on for 8.5 hours overnight here, which was a little bit tough to try to keep track of, but I was glad they at least did some of that. I think from an announcement standpoint, it all felt a little underwhelming, I think, in some ways. It was cool to be able to get confirmation. It's cool to have dates out there and have more commitments on it. And actually, we had more announcements and kind of reveals than I expected overall when we did our, kind of lead into this. And while they were maybe not really huge things, but there were more of them. So it's nice to be able to at least get an idea of what's coming down the pipe, what's coming in the funnel, and to be able to explore some of the content in more depth as we go through and have an idea of what's coming down the road, which is something that we've been rightfully so kind of critical of, hey, we announce things, but we don't make them, or they take forever. Are they really happening? There's questions. Now we have a little more of that certainty, and we have some more dates around some of that. So that's really nice.
Yeah. No, it's, and I think you're like, depending on how in tune you are with what's going on in development in Star Wars, probably kind of sways your opinion of whether or not this was like some big announcements,
Right.
We're so close to it that, some of the stuff we're like, okay, it's now official kind of thing. Right. And so, but then for a lot of fans seeing that for the first time, Sean Levy come out and, have Sigourney Weaver come out. Right. Some of this stuff is just not, I mean, it's in the back of their minds, but they're not really thinking of it. So, Shadow Lord was kind of a big surprise, even though I think we had talked about this. I forget what show we brought that up. I had mentioned that there was a pretty reputable leaker out there that had already said that we were going to be getting some kind of a Darth Maul animated series. I think it was about 2 weeks ago on one of the shows that we did. And sure enough, that turned out to be true. He had some of the other details wrong for in full disclosure, but Nonetheless, again, it depends on how close you are to some of this stuff. Some of this really kind of goes back to what we were saying before we went into Celebration, is that we're kind of in this weird position right now. We're in this weird time frame of Star Wars where we're not really sure. Are we going more heavy with movies now? Are we pulling back from television? A lot of that we'd like to think is probably going to be decisions made solely independently, unilaterally to some extent by Lucasfilm. We got to remember it's Disney really at large here, and they kind of look at holistically what are they providing as a value to Disney Plus, and so some of those decisions might get swayed there a little bit one way or the other. So because we are in that weird time, again, I really wasn't expecting some really huge monumental kind of announcements. We also knew that a lot of these shows really aren't really in production yet. They're very, very early in development, and so typically with that, we don't get a lot. So I think I was pretty happy with what we got. I love the shorter format, the 3-day format here, just because it it felt appropriate given where we were holding it, and on top of there just really wasn't much there. Now that said, if we could just quickly segue, they did announce that the next celebration will be in 2027. So 2 years from now, so April 1st through April 4th, and it's going to be in Los Angeles, which I don't think we had that on our radar.
Right.
There aren't really big conventions in Los Angeles, so it wasn't even. I think we were just looking at it before we came on the air. It's not there. That one is number 20 ranked in terms of size for convention centers here in the United States. So that wasn't really on my radar. I like the idea that it's in Los Angeles. I didn't get a chance to go back and look to see if maybe it had been done there before. Not to my recollection, but I could be wrong on that. But what are your thoughts on that? And do you feel like we're going to be better positioned 2 years from now to kind of really know whether or not, what are we going to be getting? Or are we still going to be in this kind of limbo state where we're not really sure of, what's still on the radar or what's in development at this point?
I think the idea is that we will have a much better idea. I mean, it seems like they're starting to get a little bit more organization. It does seem like they're starting to put plans in place, and maybe they're starting to pick up some momentum. But, I think it's kind of a safer bet to schedule this thing out a couple of years. And we talked a little bit about this last week, and just to be able to see that you need a little more time and you want a little more confidence. And we don't have to do this every year. This is a really big production. And, 3 days this year, go back to 4 days in the future. It's a lot to do. It's a lot to schedule. It's a lot to try to cram in there. And, doing it year over year is pretty tough. And if you don't really know what you have, it loses a little of that that specialness that goes with it of what are we going to try to top every single year. So I think 2 years is pretty good. Los Angeles, I would have loved for it to be back in Chicago because McCormick Place was such an amazing facility. And I was really surprised how many people really enjoyed that too. And you had different buildings. Yeah, you had to kind of go outside and go between them, across the road or whatever. But the situation out there was just really nice. There was another big convention going on at the same time, and you really wouldn't have known it, right? And Anaheim has done a great job too. And I talked to Mike Rondo. He's like, actually, Orlando did a really did great memories there too. I think that was back in 2015 when he did that one. But so I think they'll all kind of do something pretty well, right? I'm curious what Los Angeles is going to do, and if it sounds like they specifically said Los Angeles rather than Anaheim, so you'll lose a little of that connectivity to Disneyland and all of that. So those familiar with Anaheim might lose some of that, but
yeah,
it's still. It's nice for it to be back stateside, so it's at least an opportunity for us to make an easier go of it for those of us here in the U.S., of course.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think we are going to do everything in our power to get to Celebration in 2027. So
yeah, and one quick point just to go back to what you were saying, when you're when you get these announcements, when we're sitting at home, we're a little disconnected or whatever. When you're there and you get those announcements, it's a different feeling. Man. It's a different feeling. Yeah. So when I'm saying it was a little underwhelming, part of that's just because of the physical distance from it, and you have this barrier in place. When you're there, and you get some of the things, even the smaller things feel really huge because you're just so amped up and you're just so into it. And if anything, that's the one envious thing I think you and I probably share about the people who were able to go. And our friend Daz was out there, of course, taking lots of great pictures and doing all the things both around Japan, but also at the convention. And yeah, that's the part that you really miss out is that those life experiences that you get to come back and take and share with other people and try to convey the excitement and energy that you felt while you were there, because it's really unheard of and it's really difficult to replicate or even describe.
Yeah, no, 100%. It's a feeling for sure. Okay, well, let's do this. Let's get into, so we are going to kind of blitz through a lot of this, and we don't want to, undermine anything or take anything away from the announcements themselves. Again, we're going to break this down and speak to a lot of these in greater depth and detail on our Patreon episodes. But let's start with the Mando Grogu panel, which, we were kind of talking about why they didn't have an opening, ceremony this year compared to other conventions in the past. And they kind of did use this as a, showcase-ish. You had Showcase Light, which is probably more appropriate because it was more than just Mando Grogu, of course. We got that. But the big announcement out of the gate, Kathleen Kennedy came out. She did kind of drop Taika Waititi, Kinberg, and some of the other ones. No mention of Ryan Johnson or Patty Jenkins. We'll talk more on one of those a little bit later. But they did bring out Sean Levy right from the start. And I was like, well, oh my goodness. Okay, so we're getting something here. And they kind of obviously went right into Starfighter. Not a lot given out about this. We've got Ryan Gosling, who had been rumored for a number of months now to be involved in the project. They brought him out. We got to see his, bed sheets from Mom back in the day with the Star Wars bed sheets that he had. But then they kind of just, they teased us with the actual logo, and there was some music playing in the background. That was pretty much all that we got, but I think it was enough to really get people excited with the fact that, okay, this is something material. It's happening. It's more than just, something we're reading on Hollywood Reporter or Variety Magazine. It's there at Celebration. Now, there have been things at Celebration that have been announced that, didn't really pan out the way they wanted to, but how do you feel like as far as confidence level that this one's going to actually, go through, and how excited were you to see that, to see some confirmation of Sean Levy's movie?
Yeah, as far as confidence goes, I don't know if you get much higher. They gave us a date, May 28, 2027. Production starts this fall, and they actually gave us a little bit of, around the timeline too. And we'll talk a little about that here in a minute. But, I think this is something that it seems like a go. We've seen this smoke for a while now, right? And again, like you said, it's really nice to be able to get that hard confirmation directly from the showrunner and creator's mouths and saying, yes, we're doing it. And here's the date we're going to do it. And here's when we're starting, because I think that's really what we're all craving, right? And being able to do. I think overall, it was really actually kind of funny, and it was a little bit cute. Like Ryan Gosling just seemed like a deer in headlights. He just seemed like he was so overwhelmed by what he stepped into, which is really, I don't know, it kind of warms your heart a little bit that even these people who are big movie stars, they get all of this attention, they get these big salaries and whatever else from what they do, can still step into these things and appear to be very nervous, humbled, nervous, and like, oh my gosh, I don't know what to say except try to say all of the Star Wars buzzwords to get people excited.
Yeah,
and then they erupt around you, and I can just imagine like what that feeling is. You just can't imagine it, right? And I think it's humbling sometimes and heartwarming to be able to see these people struggle with just the sheer amount of what Star Wars fandom like brings to the table and what you step into. I think people understand it when they sign the contracts, but when you sit there and have that kind of exposure, like you just feel very exposed and naked. I think it's probably the entire fandom.
Yeah, it's a different world for sure. If you watch the Sigourney Weaver interview, you could see it in her face as well. And she's been arguably part of some of the largest franchises ever, right? Aliens, Avatar, Ghostbusters. I think they mentioned Galaxy Quest. She got a rousing ovation for that one. But even somebody like her, and we've talked about this with other stars that have been pulled into these projects. It is a different world, and for all the there's the darker side of Star Wars fandom as well, right? Let's not ignore that. But at the same time, I would say, there are more of us. To coin a phrase, there's a lot more people out there that just love Star Wars and they just want to have a good time, and they're not looking for every opportunity to sling mud or I don't know, run the franchise down for whatever sick reasons that they have. But yeah, the Starfighter, I'm excited. I can't wait to learn more about it. It's nice that we've got another movie on the books there. Now, One Up versus CPU just brought this up, and this is one of the talking points we had. He said, wasn't a Rogue Squadron movie going to happen and then canceled? Well, officially it was announced, but not really officially. And then it was kind of canceled, and then it was brought back. It
was totally on their roadmap. Yeah.
It was on their roadmap at one point. Yeah. I think they gave us like some kind of a timeline at that time as well.
I think so. I think it was like 2027 or 8.
Yeah.
Roughly. I'm trying to remember. It's hard to tell what's reality and versus what we made up.
Exactly.
But especially a couple years removed. Yeah.
But so, we had Patty Jenkins I think we covered it on a way station not too long ago. She came out and said, oh, something was still brewing there. So, whether or not that really happens, I don't know. I do wonder, though, if they're bringing out a movie like Starfighter, does that kind of put a nail in the proverbial coffin for something like Rogue Squadron? I'm not saying we can't have two movies that are similar. And I say this, making a huge assumption that Starfighter is going to be about a starfighter pilot, and there's going to be a lot of, combat battles and space battles kind of thing. Maybe not. Maybe there's, maybe it's a good balance there. The Rogue One movie was kind of sold as being, what we saw during like World War II, dogfighter kind of pilots type stuff. And we were going to get that in Star Wars, right? So I don't know. I guess they could both exist. I wouldn't hold your breath for the Rogue Squadron one just because it has been deathly quiet. It wasn't even mentioned like by Kathleen Kennedy from the onset of this year's celebration. So I don't know. Any thoughts there? Do we think we're still going to get that at this point?
Well, are we going to get it? I don't know. I mean, at this point, it seems like it's been on the death watch list, but can they both exist? I mean, yeah, I think Rogue Squadron definitely fits a different, I mean, these are different time periods here. And I'll tell you a little bit about what we learned about Starfighter. Rogue Squadron was still going to take place during the New Republic.
Yeah.
This is taking place 5 years after Rise of Skywalker, right? It's a one-shot, completely new characters. It's a standalone movie. And these are all the things that Sean Levy shared about it. So it definitely can stand on its own, entirely by itself.
Right.
And if Rogue Squadron could come, if it ever gained enough traction, and again, maybe the Mando verse has kind of taken on a life of its own if it was supposed to fit in there. But even still, you could explore like Wedge type characters in Rogue Squadron and what happened after the end of the rebellion, or maybe during the rebellion, and what the squadron did. So I think there's a lot of things you could still do with all of that, and they can definitely coexist and be very different. The overall, you'd ask how I felt about the announcement. It was a little underwhelming. Star Wars Starfighter is pretty basic title, and really we didn't get anything about it. Like, what is it? Like you said, just a little something. Is it Top Gun in Star Wars or what, right? And just give us a little flavor of what you're writing and what you think it's going to be. And I get it. These things are probably very much in motion from what they're working on a, I don't know if it's actually at script level yet or just a production type of design or whatever, but, a little something would have been kind of nice.
Yeah. I would have not minded more than just the title and what we
Right.
got. But, in due time, I mean, they don't want to steal the limelight from some of this other stuff that's going on. And I get it's probably super early in production, especially if they're just going to start filming this fall. That kind of makes sense and tracks. So we have plenty of time for this thing to really start gaining traction. So it was nice that they brought it. I'm not going to, look a gift horse in the mouth. So
Yeah. I mean, to Justin's point, they better have a snazzy looking Starfighter in it.
yeah, I don't know which Starfighter.
Point taken. He says he's just kidding, but no, man, you're right on the money. Yeah. Needs to have a good looking ship in there.
It probably does, right? I mean, you've got that front and center. Wasn't there a game on the PlayStation 1 called Starfighter?
Yes, there was.
It was like a Naboo. I think it was an episode.
I think it was on the original Xbox too. Yeah, that was the Phantom Menace. Yeah.
Yeah. That's not the movie, by the way. Just saying that. Okay. Mando Grogu. Let's talk about that one. Again, we're going to talk in greater detail and length here when we get to the Patreon episode after this, but nice to see Sigourney Weaver. I think we called that and said that they would probably bring some of the actors out. I didn't think they were going to bring her out because they had already announced before day one that both her and Pedro Pascal were going to be on Good Morning America. I just assumed that they were going to be, on set or, on set at Good Morning America in like Los Angeles or wherever the heck they filmed that thing. But they ended up doing that. It was just remotely from Japan. So, funny how that technology stuff works. But it was great. They brought her out. We got the teaser footage, of course. So again, we talked about some of the footage in there was from D23. What else? I guess, did this help your hype meter for the movie? And are you still PO'd that they haven't changed the title?
Yeah.
I'm kidding. I'm not saying you were, but
still a little devastating, but it was just kind of a typical panel. I don't think there was anything super unique about it. It was, again, nice to be able to kind of be introduced to Sigourney Weaver, understand how she fits into the story. Good to see Pedro Pascal. I'm really not sure about his boot and shorts combinations of his
that guy's
attire.
high fashion all the time, man.
He is high fashion.
Yeah.
I mean, clearly high and beyond whatever I'm able to comprehend. So all the power to him. And then he donned Dave Filoni's hat over on the Celebration Live.
Look good on the hat. Look good on him. Better than Filoni, in my opinion.
He pulled it off. Yeah, he pulled it off. But
for sure.
A good panel. I mean, it was only like 20 or so minutes. They kind of split the time a little bit with Starfighter. But again, the trailer, it's not really a trailer. It's just kind of a sizzle reel. was kind of where it was at, right? I think that gave us more information than the actual panel did about what to expect from Sigourney Weaver. She's kind of filling, it almost seems like this Grief Karga kind of role now that Carl Weathers is unfortunately passed. So it kind of had those similar vibes as like season 1 of Mandalorian, season 1, season 2 a little bit. So kind of cool to see some of that going. But yeah, it was a good panel. It was good. It was fine.
Yeah.
I don't know. There was nothing really super unique about it in my opinion.
Yeah. I would agree. It was good. I enjoyed it. It was great to see everybody. But again, the really good stuff, talkative stuff, is the actual teaser sizzle reel thing. So more on that here in just a little bit. Let's move to the Lucasfilm Animation. This is the 20th anniversary. You and I were both really excited to see this because we knew they were going to announce something here soon. Again, this is one of those things that I think in one of the way stations recently we announced that the rumor was that there was going to be some kind of a Maul-centric episode. And if you were kind of reading how the stars were aligning, Sam Witwer was going to be playing a big part at this celebration, and more than just kind of hosting the panel, which he did here. We did get I think they showed one of the episodes from Tales of the Underworld, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, the entire first episode of Ventress, yeah.
Yeah, and so there were some echoes of, we talked about this, that maybe they would pull something, from the book, and certainly they did. Now, I haven't really seen anything on this, and I haven't read much about it, to be quite honest, because I'm like, it's not that much longer before we get to see this and have it in our hands, but it does sound like there was kind of a retelling almost, maybe not, of Ventress's rise, the way she came back. It's funny that we're talking about this on Easter Day, but she did come back from the dead in some way, some capacity, and certainly it had to do with Dathomir, which we all kind of knew was, the likely culprit or catalyst for all of that.
Yeah, and how they position this, we won't give too much away because we're going to come back and revisit this, but they basically kind of pick up from a different perspective from Dark Disciple, which I think was really good. And apparently a lot of the feedback has been very positive that they did this well. People are going to enjoy it. People are not going to have a problem with this. And if you love Dark Disciple, it really does feel like a continuation of that in some ways before they, flash into the current story. But we do get some resolution. We'll see to what extent we get that and the explanation as to why. It sounds like we will get something there. So I think that's satisfying, right? That's what we were kind of hoping for in Bad Batch, but we knew it didn't really make sense to get in that detail with Bad Batch. It was more useful to have her as a more mysterious character and understanding where we clear what her motives are. But it sounds like this series could give us some of the things, Albert, that you have been looking for from Asajj Ventress. So very excited to see this when it comes out May the 4th. And definitely stay tuned when we cover Tales of the Underworld. We'll see when we cover Tales of the Underworld, but we definitely are going to try to get to this as soon as possible. As I think this is going to be this character arc for Ventress is going to be really important for us to explore.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm really looking forward to that whole series, honestly, and just seeing where Ventress goes, because I suspect that this will kind of be a springboard for maybe even future iterations of Star Wars animation down the road as well. So.
I agree with you. I think Ventress, the character is so popular. I think she is ripe for her own series, and this is just another teaser of maybe them proving themselves. Hey, is this possible? Is this something that we want to be able to go and do? And I think the answer is unequivocally yes. There is a demand for it, and it's a character that is interesting enough and dynamic enough and like layered enough that where you can really do a lot of things with her and really, really blow out this era after Order 66, and that we've explored a lot of, but now you have an opportunity to really do more of from a different perspective that we still don't have yet of, well, I don't want to give too much away, but we don't have enough of it that we've seen in some of the other content that we've had between, A New Hope and the Clone Wars. But, it's a cool period to be able to still be able to explore some of these things that are more, behind the scenes, I guess, or underground, so to speak.
Yeah. And then I think one of the bigger ones, so one of the bigger announcements was, of course, Maul, Shadow Lord. We got Sam Witwer is returning to voice Darth Maul. We all love him for what he does, everything that he does. We got to see that Maul had an apprentice, which drove a lot of people. People immediately jumped on the Darth Talon bandwagon. They could.
I'm pretty sure she's pink.
She's
red,
pink in
though.
this one, not red.
Yeah.
But,
definitely her attire is not the same.
Not yet.
But she's a kid. Yeah.
Once she gets a little bit darker, maybe she starts getting into the leather stuff. I don't know. We'll see. But, I like the idea that could possibly happen just because, that was George Lucas's thing. That's what he was kind of going for in his sequel trilogy. And it would be a nice kind of nod to some of the original ideas that George Lucas had for that sequel trilogy. So I wouldn't hate it. I just think it's probably premature to say that, that's definitely Darth Talon at this point.
I'm going to say it's definitely not Darth Talon, to be honest with you.
Well, then we'll get it right when it's officially announced.
Yeah.
But I think this series got a lot of people excited, and it's got a lot of people excited. There's a lot of buzz about it. They did show kind of a trailer. I'd call it more of a trailer, honestly, than a teaser, because there was a lot of dialogue spoken. You kind of got a gist of what was happening. That will be more contextualized as we get closer and they start revealing things, that sort of stuff, little tidbits here and there. But this is another one that we're going to do on Patreon. So we'll be breaking this one down here shortly, or very soon, as we can get some time to do it. So looking forward to really breaking this one down. What did you think of the art style? I mean, in what was shown to the public, you only got that one glimpse of him kind of coming off that landing platform, and it looked a little bit darker, grittier kind of thing. I got the, when you actually watch the trailer, it kind of got that sense that, hey, this looks a lot like we would expect Star Wars animation to be like this day and age. But there was something else about it. I couldn't really put my finger on it, but it looked really sensational.
Yeah, it was really kind of tough to tell because there's little sequence. I mean, the quality of the footage that we have, of course, is not super great. But what you have is you have kind of the clean Clone Wars, Rebels, Bad Batch type of look to it. But then there are times where the lightsaber looks very Kylo Ren-ish, where it just starts to, fizzle a little bit. And it's not because that's the lightsaber doing that. It's just the animation style, as well as some of the ship. Like when we looked at the Lucasfilm Animation 20th anniversary little, summary video they did, at the very end, you see him walking down the ramp, and you can kind of, to your point, you kind of see the ship just has this very kind of grittier, harsher design to it. It reminded me a little bit more of the Visions episode Sith, where you have when they're in the hallway and they're fighting. With the lady and the Darth character. It kind of reminded me a little bit of that, which if it blends those two worlds between what Sith was doing a little bit of as well as what we're used to with Clone Wars and all of that, I'm perfectly cool with this. I think that would be a fantastic way, because I think it fits the Maul character too. And the logo for this was phenomenal. I think it gives you that idea because it looks very jaggedy, kind of wasting away a little bit in this red, really bold, fierce text that they selected for it and font for it. And I think this is just something that could really work well for the character, especially in this kind of post-Order 66. Maul probably succeeding and failing all over the place as he starts to kind of rebuild himself yet again, and probably have to do it multiple times. I could see this type of series going on for 2 or 3 seasons, actually. And again, there's such a long timeline, and we know that he's around all the way to the days of Kira. So he's got a long road ahead, and there's a lot we can do here. And of course, Sam Witwer being on board, A, you have to, but then B, he's such an ambassador for Star Wars and such an ambassador for this character in animation that it's just super exciting to have him back in the seat and doing this stuff. And they've been talking about this for a couple of years now. So it's been eating at him not to be able to talk about this openly. And I will just eat at him, and they can't give us any details. But really cool on this one. I don't think we got a release date though, or maybe it's next year. I think 2026. I forgot to write that down, but I think it's next year. Yeah, I think it's next year as well. Yeah, for sure. I just don't remember when they were gonna. I don't remember the actual date on it. If they gave that to us or not. No, they did not. Yeah. Zeralin said, I would have preferred a standalone series for Ventress, but I'll take whatever we can get. That's pretty much me with Star Wars in general. I'll take whatever I can get. But yeah, point well taken, because Ventress is so beloved, and she's just had an incredible, incredible arc. I mean, you can't, her along with Maul and Ahsoka, I mean, they're just 3 characters that have been on such a journey. And I'm not taking anything away from any of the original, legacy characters or anything like that. But, there's just something about these characters that are special because they all originated in, animation. And so it's nice to kind of see their stories continue. And some of them have already crossed over, obviously, to the big screen and small screen. All right, let's see. What else have we got here? Let's talk about Andor. So there was the Andor panel. That was great. It's really weird to see, what's her name? Deidre Mira, the actress who plays her. Denise Goff. Denise Goff. To see her, just let loose, right? And just have a good time. And there's a really... She probably has to get a coaching too, because she's got no filter. Sometimes it's fantastic. But on stage, there were great... Bill Mendelsohn and her have this little clip on StarWars.com, or I think it's on their YouTube channel or something, where they start singing songs together, and it's just hilarious just to really see them. So it was great to see the cast up there. Some of our good friends have already seen the whole series, and they're talking about how incredible and wonderful it is. I've seen this unanimously from everybody.
And I'm so excited about that. But man, we talked about this when we did the final hype show. We knew this was going to happen. Like this could really, they could be really just blowing smoke up our butts and it's really terrible. I don't think that's the case at all. You just got too many things working in its favor for it to fail at this point. But the first episode, they got to see that there at Star Wars Celebration. Of course, we got the first 3 coming up this week. We got KTSO was confirmed. I think you had mentioned, I think you told me that it was going to be in episode 8, which I thought, wow, that's a lot later than I was hoping. Because, you know, you and I were on this page of like, well, we'd like to see him maybe come on earlier on in the show, in the series, and then see some character development over, you know, happen. We'll at least get 3 episodes, I would suspect, where we get to see some of that relationship develop, since, you know, they're doing 3 at a time. But I don't hate it. I think it's going to be fun.
Yeah.
But what else stood out for you as far as some of the things quickly on Andor?
Yeah, we got confirmation from Tony Gilroy about how much time is taking place in these 3 episodes for each year. And it's really just a few days. So, I mean, 3 episodes is really just covering a really intense and dense few days. And then you jump a whole year in the future. So it was kind of an interesting challenge. I think Tony Gilroy's he loves doing this though, of like, I'm going to give you, we don't want to stretch it and go across too much time. I want to give you something really meaningful. Here's the most important thing that happened this year.
Yeah.
And here it is in a lot of detail and suspenseful and action packed and all of that. And so I think it was good to get some of that clarification about what that is. Just a few days is interesting. We'll see how well this plays out. But again, the reception of the first episode in particular was overwhelmingly positive. It sounds like some things that most of the things we've seen maybe in some of the footage from trailers and TV spots and all of that, again, sound like they are pretty early on in the series. So there's going to be a lot of surprises as we go through. Regarding K2SO, you know, I think episode 8 still works pretty well. Yeah, we kind of wanted to see him maybe that second year, you know, the episodes 4 through 6. But
yeah, right.
I think with 8 and then giving a whole year, like, and then you introduce the character, you get one more episode with them, and then you have a whole year go by, and then you have 3 episodes, you know, 10, 11, and 12. So you really have kind of 4 plus. I still think that's going to be fantastic. I think it's going to work because you get to establish the relationship. You get a little bit of the weirdness that goes on with it and some, you know, funny moments. And then a year later, and they found a bit more of a rhythm. And then you really seed into the, you know, the meaningful part of all of that. And then you get into Rogue One with how they, you know, how it all goes. But it's kind of interesting. They just know each other for really just the better part of 2 years, if that. So not as long as kind of what we originally expected for, you know, for K2SO and Cassian Andor. But, and who wrote it in the chat? Yeah, Rollins wrote Denise and Kyle. So Denise Goff and Kyle Soller are so much fun. Their characters, not so much, but they were trying to describe their scenes. And actually right a day or two before this, you'd sent me a video of one of the new TV spots where, you know, Kyle is kind of clandestine meeting with Dedra Meero, and I was like, what are we watching? This is
don't know.
Weird
it's
and
so weird.
uncomfortable, and it's so awkward. But
I'm here for it. Like, I can't wait to see that because it is awkwardly weird, but there's something fascinating about it. I want to know more.
Right, but it was perfect too. And then when we get to Celebration, we see the panel and they're talking about it, and they're just so awkwardly. I mean, they're trying not to give anything away too,
sure.
They were talking about how weird the relationship is, and it was, and it just makes so much sense that they're struggling to kind of tell people because they just want it to be this weird. These 2 really awkward people that just don't know what they're doing, but clearly there's some sort of attraction. So go Google, like, turn out the lights, and you'll go watch that thing. It's official. There's nothing crazy about it, but. And then Kyle Soller's like, yeah, things get spicy. I'm like, oh, don't say things like that to people. But
yeah,
but it was still kind of. It's interesting, and they do go on a kind of their own arc and journey as well. And so I don't know, so many good things have come out of what we've heard about this one. And I know we need to move on, but like Ben Mendelsohn, I heard, like, just steals the show, like in his scenes. And so with Krennic, and Krennic is just an amazing character.
He's an amazing character played by an amazing actor. Like, he's just got so much power and presence. It's going to be great to see him again.
Exactly. It was great to see Alan Tudyk on stage, of course, too. And Diego Luna was everywhere. He went back to the Celebration live stage, I think 2 days in a row, as a number of people did. And so it was really great to be able to get more time with the characters. He's just such an infectious spirit for Star Wars.
Yeah.
So everybody clearly having a great time. And I could listen to Tony Gilroy talk about this show for days and never get bored.
Yeah. Yeah. Good stuff, man. I'm so excited for this, even more than I was last week. So looking forward to that. All right, let's move on to Ahsoka. This is the Ahsoka panel. Of course, season 2 officially announced. We knew that was already coming up. They haven't started filming. I think they were going to start filming like next week or something like that, or very soon.
Yeah, the next handful of days, probably.
Yeah. When they said that, I thought, okay, well, we're not going to get any footage of that. So that kind of sucks. Oh boy, was I wrong, but more on that here in just a second. We did get confirmation that Anakin was coming back. They kind of saved that at the very end of the panel to kind of really get everybody excited. I've heard
Even though Hayden Christensen was like literally sitting there for three-quarters of the time.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, they kind of, they do this. They kind of play it up as like, oh, we're bringing everybody from, season 1 and we're going to talk about our memories and have a good time. Kumbaya. And then it's like, oh, surprise, we're keeping him on and he's going to be here season 2. So when we broke down season 1 finale of Ahsoka, I was all on board with this whole thing about Anakin becoming the father. And then we went back and forth on like who would be the new daughter versus the new son, right? In those archetypes. With him staying on board, like I'm tripling down on this now, right? I just really feel like that's where they're going to go. If they don't, I've also heard that maybe he just takes on some kind of a, Force Ghost mentorship with maybe somebody like Sabine, or maybe it's more teachings with Ahsoka, or maybe it's a combination of both, right? Whatever the case is, the fact that we've got Hayden Christensen still alive, breathing in Star Wars, in some capacity, is a good thing. I want to see more Anakin. There's no doubt about it, right? Everybody's pretty pumped and excited about that.
Yeah. So needless to say, we're getting season 2. It's official now. And if you look at like Dave Filoni, if you look at the jacket he was wearing, it said Ahsoka S1 on their post. Right. So I mean, clearly they were already, amped up and had a second season already in the can. They released the idea and probably signed and sealed they were going to do it. But I think this was probably one of my favorite panel, just because you could just kind of feel the love in it. And then when Dave Filoni started talking about Ray Stevenson, and he started getting choked up, it was just so emotional. And we had talked about this, that we thought there would be some sort of tribute to Ray, and not necessarily the way that maybe we had thought they would do something like a video tribute or something, but the way that he talked about the impact it had on him. And that season 2 was, while it was kind of a done deal that they were going to do it, but he wasn't sure he could do it. Like he was just so sad, right? He was just so like heartbroken that they lost this person that was so important to them. And, he had to go and he talked to their family and try to figure out if it was the right thing to do. And, clearly some things started to work through and kind of move in the right direction. And then Rory McCann was kind of a perfect fit for them. And we got some images of Rory McCann. And I couldn't tell if they were actual photo images or just drawings, but I mean, he's going to be different, but he definitely kind of fits the part, and I think fits the mold of what they're looking for. But to hear Dave Filoni talk about this, and you could see the emotional impact that it had on him, was really touching. And we had this with Lars Mikkelsen last year, right, when he got choked up from all of the reaction, right, of being, or 2 years ago with Thrawn being announced, and just overwhelmed, and seeing that from Dave for a different reason. But I think that was definitely something I was looking forward to, and we got it in spades. Not that I want to see Dave Filoni hurt, but to see the meaningful and the impact of that, and how they went about, and talking a little bit about how they went to be okay with moving forward and taking the character in a slightly different direction, because this is a story that needs to be told, in Dave's opinion, and we need to be able to do it, and it's the right thing to do, and we can do it in the right way, and we can pay tribute to Ray, and and getting his family support was really important in that too. But what were your thoughts on that scene?
I mean, it was super touching. Again, I would have wanted something like a tribute. That might have been too much, honestly, now that I think about it, right? Maybe it was too soon. Yeah. It'd be nice for them to do something at some point, but given how much emotion was already on stage just talking about it, I think that would have sent the whole cast over the edge, right? And the fans as well, and us. So maybe too much to ask for at this point, but maybe they do something, when Ahsoka 2 comes out, right? They kind of have a tribute to him, at the very end or something like that, or maybe, as a kickoff kind of thing. But yeah, the panel was great. For me, as my title says down there, this is just Rebels season 6 confirmed, because everybody's back from Star Wars Rebels, with the exception of Callus and some of the other folks. But for the most part, Phoenix Squad is coming back almost 100%. As a diehard Rebels fan, I'm just over the moon about this. On top of that, they did give us a kind of, again, they hadn't filmed anything, but they put together this kind of weird, like tribute, like a montage. It was like I don't know how best to explain it. It was like a vintage style commercial. Yeah, that's a good way to put it. Bordered on trailer for, like, we would have seen back in the 70s, but it was like bordered, it was like a vintage, like action figure commercial is kind of what it felt like. Yeah. And
it was absolutely fantastic. Yeah.
No, it was amazing. It was wonderful. I
couldn't tell what the hell was happening most of the time, but it was really cool to.
It was really great
to listen to and kind of see. Yeah.
Yeah, and we are going to break that one down as well. So that'll be a Patreon exclusive as well. So we'll break that down and talk about some of the designs. I know Justin just mentioned Ezra's got a new look. You got some of like the concept art that they're using, which is what they kind of put together for this video. So we'll talk about what that is. Do some really crazy and reckless speculation on where this potentially would go. I do want to mention just yesterday, as a matter of fact, they did announce on StarWars.com that season 2 is going to be 8 episodes in length, and that Dave Filoni is coming back and he's writing all 8 of them. Yeah. I've seen some negative press on that, like some people saying like, hey, how come there's not a writer's room? Why are we letting Dave write everything? I don't know. I'm for it.
Mortis.
Yeah, exactly.
Who else is going to write?
Who else is going to write it? Right. No, I'm with you there. But it's going to be a good thing. Don't let the naysayers tell you different. The fact that Dave's behind all this makes absolute, complete sense. This is his world. We're just living in it now, So great that he's coming back to write all those. So
he's very
protective. It's a passion thing. He's so passionate about Rebels and this time period. And, he's got larger designs in mind, right? So we got to make sure we understand that too.
He's very protective of many of these characters that he creates, and him and Jon Favreau talked a little bit about that too. But so I think that's always a part of it, right? But again, who else would write this? I mean, it's basically got to be Filoni. I mean, he's really the only one who's gonna do this. Before we move on, though, 3 words though for you, Albert. Thrawn versus Akbar.
Yeah,
in season 2. Yeah, I think this might be the Akbar we were kind of hoping to see in the sequel trilogy, right? That this mastermind going up against the Empire's greatest mastermind and tactician. So kind of cool. We'll be able to see something there. So high expectations going into that. And, Filoni definitely, teased that up pretty well.
I want like I posted this on social media, but I do want like this really long combat action sequence where they're just one-upping each other. You know what I mean? It's like a game of chess back and forth. And it's, what take whatever your favorite lightsaber battle is, and then say, okay, now let's do that in space. I'm not saying we haven't had really great space battles in Star Wars, but they usually are shorter and they're not really made, kind of like the forefront, the spotlight of the episode or the movie that we're watching, maybe with the exception of like the opening to Revenge of the Sith, right? But I want to see something like that. You know what I mean? I want something to be like, this is the end all be all like space battle, and it's being delivered to us in a TV show written by Dave Filoni, starring, like you said, the greatest tactician the Empire has ever had versus the greatest tactician the Rebellion has ever had. That would be something to really watch and look forward to and sell and put on a shirt. I just can't wait for that. So,
when we're so spoiled by what Timothy Zahn did, like in the Throne Ascendancy books, as well as like some of those space battles and going through the mind of Thrawn and how those played out, like were absolutely fantastic. And so we've got that mental model in our head. So there's a high bar there. I think this is where Filoni, as he's, matured a little bit, we're going to see how well he can execute this live action. So it'd be interesting to kind of see his growth as well here. So I think with some of the naysayers, we have to look and see how people continue to grow. And I think Filoni is always really open and honest about this, that, look, this is not something I ever expected to do. And I've had to just try it. I've had to, figure things out. Things go well, things don't go well. And you just keep learning and moving forward. And you have someone like Favreau who can really coach and guide. Actually, we talked about Favreau, several weeks ago about when we were talking about the whole Kathleen Kennedy thing. And I mean, Favreau, the way that he's kind of almost like a big brother or uncle or father figure to like all of this stuff, you could definitely see it kind of feels like he's being positioned for Kathleen Kennedy's position if he wants it in the future. He's kind of already filling some of that role today, it looks like.
Yeah. He was up on that stage at one point and he said, I'm not going anywhere. Right. Yeah. Saying like, just because this movie's coming out and he's got some other things, it sounds like he's in for the long haul. So maybe that was coded, a coded message, but we'll see. We'll see. All right. I don't want to shortchange Star Wars Visions because this is another great.
It's hard to talk a lot about it though, because it was almost 100% in Japanese. Yeah.
Unless you understand Japanese. But the audience was predominantly Japanese at Star Wars Celebration, which, by the way, I forgot to mention, this is one of the cool things. I don't have the number in front of me, but I read the number and went, wow, that's a lot. The number of people, first time attendees to this Star Wars Celebration was crazy high. And a lot of them were Japanese folk, and it's been since 2008 since we were back in Japan. So it's been a while, right? But that's really great to hear, right? That just goes to prove what we've been saying, that Star Wars is not dead, and there's always going to be a new generation, and they're always going to be looking for something new to kind of appease a lot of different people and different appetites and what people come and look for in Star Wars. So all of that really bodes well. But they've got a largely predominant audience, and Visions is the greatest opportunity they're going to have to do something that's not in English. Put it all in Japanese and let us suffer, and like they've been suffering for all the stuff that was in English. So it was perfect. I loved it. The panel was great, as much as I could get and so from the translations. But really, the idea that we're getting another 9 episodes from these Japanese teams. 3 of these episodes are continuations of 3 from season 1 of Star Wars Visions. And then the coup de grace, the one that I was just like, oh my God, I flipped out on, was this standalone The Ninth Jedi series that's coming out.
Right.
That is so exciting, because I think you and I said, back when we covered Star Wars Visions Volume 1, that was kind of like one of maybe 2 or 3 that were just really absolutely stellar standout episodes. Were so intriguing. We wanted to know more. It just felt like there was something really here. And I will remind you, when we broke down Star Wars Visions Volume 1, we said, we hope that at some point someone takes one of these things and blows it out into like a whole series. And we got, the Ronin, what was the last Ronin book? What was the name of the book now? Darn it.
Yeah, Ronin.
Yeah, Ronin. We got that, and I was like, okay, that's cool. That's not really what we're looking for. We really want a full series, but here we are now, several years down the road, and we're finally getting that. And I cannot be more excited the fact that it's actually The Ninth Jedi, because that was really like my standout episode. But thoughts on the panel?
Yeah, Star Wars Vision Presents is what they're going to call it, and that'll be kind of a showcase, for a single show to be kind of brought in and be able to flesh it out. And just like you said, they heard that feedback from a lot of us and saying,
yeah,
some of these are worthy of exploring in further detail. And what a whole series means, we don't quite know yet. But, Ninth Jedi, they say will come out in 2026. The 9 episodes for Visions Volume 3 will be out, I think, all at once on October 29th of this year, 2025. So that's good. They did have some sizzle reels and things like that we were able to see. They were pretty good. We got titles for all of the different shows that are coming out this year, including The Duel and The Village Bride and The Ninth Jedi, kind of continuations that you had mentioned. So again, of the new ones though, was there anything that stood out for you? I think the one that visually looked really good to me, and I think the story is probably what I'm going to attach to, is Bird of Paradise. I think looked really, really good, actually.
Yeah, that's the one that it kind of opens with, right? I think it's got the girl that's turning around and she's talking about her master or whatever. Yeah, that one's, again, some of the mediums that they're using, I don't know if medium's the right word, but the artistic style that they use for some of these is just mind blowing. That one stood out for me. I'm going to be kind of basic and say The Duel Payback. I just loved that animation style, and it feels like it's ramped up on this one as well. That one, the Black, they did like a little presentation on it. They had the guy that came out and they talked about, one of the creators or whatever it was. Yeah. I don't know if I'm going to enjoy that one because I really don't understand what it is, but visually it looks amazing. I don't know what's going on with the stormtroopers, and we're like flying, and there's like, there's a battle, and then we're seeing more of these guys without their helmets, and I whatever. I'm all for it. This is Star Wars. It's still Star Wars, and it looks great. So, but I'm just excited that we're getting Volume 3. Quite honestly, it's a really great series. So yeah, October
29th is when that'll release, and then the series will be in 2026.
Yep. Alex says, what about Hot Toys Grogu? Looks amazing. Yeah.
Everything Sideshow does is pretty amazing.
It looks amazing, and it's very expensive. So yeah, no, seriously though, it was everything they do is pretty amazing. So Zorellen says, same Albert, I'm a Duel fan. I love Ronin novel too, so I'm excited to see the animated sequel. Yep. Okay. We've
only got a couple minutes, but let's talk publishing really, really fast if we can.
Yeah.
So
let's see.
High Republic. Don't just talk about High Republic.
Man.
What we got there and what we didn't get there.
Yeah. So we got, just confirmation of this is the final book. It was great to see some of the writers out there on stage. Not everybody was there, which was kind of, I don't know, maybe not disappointing. I was thinking maybe that's a sign that there's more to come. But we've got the Battle of Eridu is coming out, of course. That's being written by Alyssa Wong. She's really done a great job since she's come in, by the way, with the High Republic stuff. Trials of the Jedi. We got to see the back cover of Trials of the Jedi that was kept secret by Charles Soule for a number of months now. It looks like to be all the Jedi are kind of backed into this corner. They're up, their backs are against each other. So whatever is coming in on them to be determined. We've got the one shot by Cavan Scott. I thought he was done, but he's got this one shot coming out called The Beacon.
Right.
That was cool. Let's see. I think the one thing that was probably disappointing, maybe, is the fact that we didn't get any kind of word or indication of where is Star Wars Publishing going after this. What is the next initiative? We were speculating, hoping, praying, sacrificing baby animals that we would get, like, hey, by the way, we're going on now and we're going to do another era of the High Republic with, new writers or whatever else. And Michael Siglang was going to be up there and talk about all that. Or we're going to the Old Republic now and kind of do what we did here over there. Or maybe we're jumping ahead, 1,000 years and we're going to tell whatever that looks like. None of that was really announced. So that's kind of stinky because I don't know where we're going. It feels like we're just going to fall off a cliff here with the momentum that we've had from the High Republic. But that said, we've got the announcement of Master and Evil by Adam Christopher, his take on, what happens after Order 66 with Darth Vader, of course. That's going to be super exciting. And then there's a number of other books in there. I'm not going to list them all because there was a ton of stuff on there. So publishing's not dead by any means, but it does feel like we're kind of we're sailing without a sail for now, at least. So looking forward to, at some point, them telling us what we can look forward to, because I really feel like this formula, the people, the team, the effort, the planning that went into the High Republic was very successful. And I'd like to see them carry that on into other projects, other timelines of Star Wars, even if the mixture, the composition of the writers and all that is different. I love that. Let's hope we get to see something that like that later.
Yeah, as much as like Kevin Scott and I think mostly Charles Soule were saying, stay tuned. There's going to be updates on where the High Republic is going next, and then really kind of nothing was. I think it's fair to be disappointed in that, because again, we don't want it to stop. I think we've been a little bit critical of some of the things that they've done and maybe how long it's gone, and some of the organization of it in the overall thing. But overall, it's been really good, and the initiative has been really fantastic, and it's great to have kind of that consistency as well. It's a lot to keep up with, but to have that consistency, yeah, let's refine it, but let's try to keep that going and understand what's coming next. So I'm pretty disappointed we didn't get more of that, but again, we know they're going to be at San Diego Comic-Con. Publishing is going to be there. So I think
they had a big presence last year. I don't mean to cut you off, but last year there was quite a few things that were announced. So that would probably be a better format for them.
Yeah. So I think that's the next one that we kind of look towards and see if that's when they're going to actually announce something, why we didn't do it at Celebration.
Yeah.
Kind of how they did the announcements at Celebration was a little bit weird and, overall, but that's one thing. To touch on Master of Evil by Adam Christopher, though. So we've already confirmed it's a November 11, 2025 date, but in the Celebration live stage with him, I thought this was really important because this was my concern about this follows Vader after Order 66. The 2015 Darth Vader series that Charles Soule wrote covers this very timeline, like this very time. Adam Christopher brought it up and said, like, I know there's already like the Vader comics from Charles Soule, familiar with them. This is not that story. Like, there is more to be told beyond what you see in that adventure. And he didn't give us a lot of details about it like that, but it sounds like it'll be kind of complementary. It won't conflict with a lot of it.
Yeah.
It is going to be a different spin on what Soule was trying to accomplish in the comics. And that gave me granted, we've been able to interview Adam Christopher and be able to talk with him and joke around with him, and really great guy and really humble guy, knows his stuff. And it put my mind at ease, because that Vader series in 2015 was really, really, really good, and has a lot of it has some weirdness in it too, but it was really, really, really freaking cool.
Yeah.
And so I didn't want us to overwrite any of that or trample on it. And not that I would never accuse Adam of doing that, but it's just great to have him hear him acknowledge that, because I think when we hear that, we know that's in their mind as they are writing these things and how they fit and how they all relate to one another, rather than completely disposing of and overwriting something. So I really appreciate that he took the time to at least say that and acknowledge that. And maybe it was just the interview itself, but it really was great. So I'm really happy to hear that. It made me really gave me a little peace of mind, Albert.
Yeah. No, it's a point well taken, especially since they're kind of treading on that same era. And like, I don't know, for all the reasons you said, Adam Christopher's a great guy. I kind of had some confidence going into this that things were going to be okay, but it was still reassuring to hear him say it, so. All right. There's still a lot of other stuff in here. We didn't get into some of the other books. There, of course, we didn't even talk about, 0 Hour, the big game that was announced. But at some point you will come back, do a way station and kind of touch on some of these things, and maybe pick up on some of the bigger pieces. But yeah, overall, again, it's hard to say whether this was a successful celebration or not, because we weren't there, and that's part of it, to be quite honest. But it was great. There were some really big announcements. Kathleen Kennedy said there were going to be some big ones, and depending on, again, how much you were plugged in, they turned out to be kind of big. But you know, it was a missed opportunity for us. I hope they have it again because I'd love to go back there for Star Wars Celebration. But I'm looking forward to already to Los Angeles, you know, 2 years from now, and seeing what that landscape's going to be like in Star Wars, given everything that we've got in production, everything that's going to be announced next year, and things to come. You know, it's a bright future to kind of be cheesy about it. But what do you think? Final thoughts on this?
I think it was overall was an enjoyable celebration. It was enjoyable to be able to watch it with people and kind of see everybody else there that was having a lot of fun, and just to be able to experience. I so miss being able to walk the floor. Like that, you just get so like they were doing these little advertisements for like the booths and the vendor booths and merchandise, which I'm always like, why are you showing this to us? Like we can't see any of this stuff. Like we're not going to go buy. I mean, some things are made available online, but that's the things I miss. It's like seeing the big, you know, fantasy flight games, you know, displays, and watching people play and kind of looking over their shoulder, having them explain it, seeing the different things, seeing all of the personal booths and the personal merch that people have, you know, created and they bring there and they sell and they give away, whatever. I mean, it's just that atmosphere, very envious of that. And so I hope people really had a chance to take that in and enjoy that, because I think that's truly what Celebration is. The announcements, everything are really fantastic. We don't want to know where the franchise is going, but when you're there kind of living it, and, you know, us to be able to watch a little bit of that is really, you know, is nice as well. But I really hope people had a great time. It looked like it was a pretty good time this year. And again, very special place to be in particular.
Yeah. Once in a lifetime for a lot of people. So, hey, you know what some very special people that we have here with us tonight are?
Well, yeah, I'll let you work. We'll celebrate our live stream, folks. How about that, Albert? Yeah, huge thanks to everyone who came out the live stream. CantinaCast.com/YouTube if you're listening to this. Thank you for the download. Invite you to come out on a live stream, be able to see all of your comments, what you think on the chat, and get those up on screen. Special thanks to Zerallins, Alex, Steph, One Up versus CPU, Oscar, Music Train, My Star Wars Guys, Justin, Jorge, and R2tron coming in there at the end. If I missed anybody not intentional, please accept my apologies. Thank you for coming out. If you're curious about Patreon, that's where we're jumping next. CantinaCast.com/Patreon if you would like to walk through the Mandalorian sizzle reel with us.
Yeah, that's going to be fun. We got a lot to say about it, and we'll talk a little bit more in detail, too, about what was talked about at the panel, since we didn't get to spend a whole lot of time here. So, again, if you're staying on with us, or can't wait to see you there, for everybody else, thank you guys so much for joining us on the live stream, and we'll see you on the next show, which is public show, which is going to be our Andor breakdown. So buckle up.
Andor premiere. Let's do it.
It's going to be a lot of fun. All right, we'll see you guys then.
You're still listening? Wow, that's amazing. Well, I'm here to give you the disclaimer. Normally we do a big, long, drawn-out disclaimer thing saying what's what and who's what and all that other stuff, but I think you guys kind of know that Lucasfilm and Disney have no affiliation with us at all, and we have none with them. We talk about Star Wars, which is their property, and all that other good, fun stuff, but I think you can tell which is our stuff and which is their stuff. If you can't, well, then send a lawyer to send an email to me, and I'll be glad to chat with them. Other than that, you know what's what, so that's your disclaimer.